Alright, welcome back to this cannon project, you guys. And what do we got right now? We got a functioning cannon that can fire cannonballs at obstacles which are on platforms. We can move the cannon up and down the pole. We've got a ground and a background. And now we have a goal tile to shoot at. That's sitting on a platform as well. At least I do. But what we don't have is a scoreboard. And we know how important scoreboards are and keeping track of scores, or in this case shots fired, because people will play really lame games over and over and over to beat their score. So even if you can just do that right there, you'll create a little dopamine hit for people, and it kind of creates a little addiction to your video game if that's what you're looking for. In any case, what I would like to do at the top here is we're going to make the scoreboard. So of course I'm just going to call it scoreboard like this, and then of course we put in a line of code and you should run it. Remember, please, if your last assignment was working, you shouldn't even have put in that much code. You need to go back to the last assignment if it wasn't working, fix any errors that you have. Once you get those errors to work, then come back to this assignment, because putting in more code into code that's already got errors is not going to help you out, especially if you have other errors, which has happened. Some students come to me like the 4th or 5th assignment. They're like, Mr. Sal, I can't find my error, and then it turns out we had to trace it back to the 1st or 2nd assignment. So please make sure that you're finding your errors, correcting them as you go before you put any more code in. So there's some code right there that I just put in, right? You should run the code, make sure it works. If it works, let's put in some more code. So I have a scoreboard variable, and down here I'm just going to call it, remember I can't name a function the same as a variable, so I'm just going to call this one score. You could just call it the score maybe if you want to be more specific, but either way I'm just going to call mine score. So in my customized functions, look what I did. I forgot to put a note here for the platforms and obstacles, making the platforms and obstacles, because we know we put in the and the goal tiles, right? We put in the goal tile last time. This time we're going to make a new function, and this one is making the scoreboard. Come on, there we go. And what did we call it? Well, it's a function.
Tiara Mooney, please come to the front office. Tiara Mooney to the front office.
Well, it's a function that we already called score. So I got my score with my parentheses there. I got my opening fancy bracket and closing fancy bracket. So everything that I put into the score here is going to be part of my scoreboard. Now just to make sure, and I can scroll back up, there's the name of my function, which I'm running from the setup function, and up here the name of the variable is scoreboard. So as long as I spell scoreboard right, I should be in good shape. Scoreboard. And now I don't have to use let right there because I did above when I made it a universal variable, and we're going to make this a new sprite with open and closing parentheses. Once again, there's a new line of code. You should run it, make sure there are no errors, and also that your screen does not go blink. If that is working properly, as it should be, then we can put in more properties. Well, let's start with one property, right? Now that I have a scoreboard, if you run that, you should have seen a square right in the middle of your screen kind of fall because it's being affected by the gravity. But now I'm going to give it some shape. Scoreboard.width. And the scoreboard width that seemed to work for me, it was about 250 on this one. So again, run that code, make sure it works. If it does, we can put in the next line of code. If not, stay on that line, fix any errors that you may have, and then once you fix them, then put in the next line of code, which is for my scoreboard.height, the height, which, let's see, the scoreboard, I'm just going to make it 35 seem to work for me. So there's my scoreboard height. Again, run that code, make sure it works. If it works, then I can start positioning my scoreboard. Now I want it centered for X, so I'm not doing a .x, I'm going to do .y, and 50 right there at the top seemed to work well for me. Again, 50 is a little bit more than half. It's more than half of the 35, and that's really all we need. If you just put it right at the top, of course, you'd want the center position of the height of your, in this case, scoreboard. Now, when I run this, again, my scoreboard keeps falling, so I just want to keep it in place. So I'm going to do scoreboard.collider. My collider code is going to keep that, in this case, not static. I don't want it to affect anything in the video game, so I'm just going to make it a none collider. Again, run that code, make sure it works. If it works, we can put in more code. Now I'm going to put in some text into my scoreboard.text, space equals space. Now, what do I want the text to say? So inside of apostrophes here, I'm going to say shots fired, space, space. Well, we'll just do colon space. There's the close of my apostrophe, and then I need a new variable for, in this case, shots fired. So I'm just going to call it shots fired. Now I can't run this code because now I've defined a new variable. I've made a new variable, shots fired, but I have not defined it. So at the top here, I'm going to say the shots fired, which it should start, of course, let shots fired equal, it should start at the number 0. So now, inside of your scoreboard, you should have the text shots fired. Remember, I've got a space there, and then you should see the number 0. Just to go back to the top where I did that, there's the shots fired line of code. So if you need that, pause the video here, but I'm going to move on back down to my score function. There's the score function. So I have some text, I've given it a collider. There are some more things that we need. I now want to give the scoreboard, I want it to have a text size. The text starts out a little small for me, so I think text size making it 30 seems like it worked pretty well for the size of my scoreboard. So 30 seems to work. Again, run that code, make sure it works. If it doesn't work, stay where you are, fix the code, and then move on. Next, we have a scoreboard dot, let's give the text some color right here. And the color that I chose was yellow. I think yellow makes that pop really well. Now, you know what? Actually, I started with yellow. Let's go ahead and make it black. I'm going to make the text yellow. I think yellow on top of a black background makes that pop really well. So let's do that. Again, run that code, make sure it works. If it doesn't work, stay where you are, fix it, and then do more code like I'm doing here. So now that we have a background color for our scoreboard, let's put in a text color that is going to be, again, I said I would put yellow on top of the black because I think it pops really well. Run that line of code, make sure it works. If it does work, we can put in more code. So it's the scoreboard dot, that looks pretty good, and some of you probably noticed that, but what I would like is a stroke around the box, and of course the stroke is just the outline. I'm just going to make it the same as the text color, so I'm going to say yellow on this one too, because again, I think it looked good, but if you're like, yeah, Mr. Sal, I don't think it looks good, you can use whatever colors you like. Now that gets you a scoreboard on there. It's not going to change the shots fired if you fire the cannon though. We will take care of that, but not until the next assignment. Now that's a scoreboard. What we also want in this one is a winning message, which may be more appropriate for the next lesson, but in any case, I'm going to do it right now. So up here at the top, we're going to create the winning message. And of course, I'm going to have it stored into a variable. Yes, I'm at the very top where my universal variables are, so it's let, and I'm just going to call this one winner. Okay, so again, I can use that anywhere universally in my code. Down here, I'm going to create a new function that I'm going to call win. And now that I have that run inside of the setup function, this is inside the setup function, you guys. You have to put that inside the setup function. Now down here towards the bottom, it's a new customized function, so making the winning message. And of course the function, which we know, function, we just named it win. So there's function win. Up here inside the setup function is the running of the function win, and above that we have the variable winner, which we're going to store as a sprite. So that's the first thing I'm going to do. I'm going to say take that winner variable and make it a new sprite. So there's a new line of code. I probably should have told you to test this already. If you haven't, now run the code at least. There could be an error on this line, or maybe an error on this one, or maybe you didn't run the win function inside the setup function, which you need to do. But if it's working, we can do a little bit more work. The winner, so I have an object, right? And again, if you run that and it worked, you should have seen a square right in the middle of your canvas that falls because of the gravity. Now I'm going to shape it. So I want some width here. I'm going to compare it to the width of the canvas. And remember, this is a winning message, so I want it to be pretty big, comparable to the width of the canvas. That is going to give me 90% of the width of the canvas, centered right in the middle of the canvas. So multiplying that by 0.09 is the same, 0.90 is the same as 90%. Now that I have a width, I'm going to give it a height, H-E-I-G-H-T, and the height that worked for me was 40 on that one, so I got a height of 40. Again, run that code, make sure it works. If it works, we can put in more code. Now I'm going to place it. The winner.y position is going to be 90 worked for me. Okay, so I have mine appearing just below the scoreboard, and it should appear pretty well directly below the scoreboard. So again, run that code, make sure it is positioned well, because if it is not positioned well, then you may need to change your Y position on this one. Okay, but again, for me, I think that works pretty well, even though right now it's falling, right? So I don't want it to fall even though I have the position wells. So I'm going to take winner.collider, put in some collider code, and this one's going to be the same as the scoreboard. It should be a none collider, so it's not affected by gravity or collisions or overlapping or anything like that. Making it none makes it part of the background. It's going to show up right now for us, even though in the future we're only going to make it show up at a certain time. Okay, so we got the collider code. Let's give it some text. So winner.text space equals space. There's my apostrophe. You win! Exclamation point. It only took space. There's the apostrophe. Now I'm going to tell them how many shots it took. Shots fired, space plus space, apostrophe right there. Now I want a space here, so it's not just the number and then the text for shots. Exclamation point, apostrophe, semicolon. So again, run this code, make sure it works, make sure it fits in the width that you have for your score, in this case your winning message. And then we can do a little bit more here. So I have text. Again, the text is a little small. Winner.text, just like we did with the scoreboard, text size, space equals space. 30 seemed to work. So 30 is going to make that look pretty good. It's going to be fairly large, visible enough for the player to see. Run that code, make sure it works. Let's put in some more code. Well, let's give the background color a color for the winning message, and the color that I chose was magenta. I think I spelled that right. And when it does, magenta is kind of a bright pink color, at least the way this shows up, so magenta I think works pretty good. Run that code, make sure it works. If it works, let's do some more coding. Now I'm going to have a text color for you win. It only took shots fired shots. Text color, space equals space, and the color that I chose was lime. So again, run that code, make sure it shows lime on top of that magenta, and then the last thing I'm going to do is give the winner.stroke. That's the border of my winning message. And we're going to make this one also the same as the text color lime. Okay, so this is all we need. And again, you should be seeing this message right here. Remember, we already defined shots fired as 0. Up here, there's shots fired as 0 right there, right? So you should be seeing the message. Where'd it go? Not this one, this one. You win. It only took 0 shots. And for the scoreboard, it should say shots fired, colon space 0. Now you can fire the cannon all you want, and that scoreboard is not going to change, and that's because, of course, we have not made it so that the program will update the score whenever shots have been fired. But for the most part, this is our code right here. Of course, if you need any of that code, now's the time to pause. We had the two functions, function win and function score, which we called out and ran inside of the setup function here, which again, if you need that code, now's the time to pause. And then at the very top, we had our universal variables, shots fired. Well, I guess we had 3, didn't we? Shots fired, scoreboard, and winner. So if you need any of that code, now is the time to pause the video. In any case, that's going to do it for me. We will be doing the next assignment, of course, which is the final assignment for this project, and then the last assignment for this project, or for this unit, is for you to create your own cannonball board.